Hi, Greg. How are you doing?
You're very well, thank you. Very good
Good.
to see you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to take part in our webinar series. So, yeah, initially we're just going to talk a little bit about your agency and then lead into how you started the process of becoming a B Corp and why, really.
Sure. So Base Creative started in 2006, a long time ago now, before my time at Base, as a web agency. So we've evolved quite a bit over those years. We now do search marketing, social media analytics, and content for professional service firms and B2Bs. Over the last 5 or 6 years, culture has become a really big part of the agency, much more important to the team and how we work, and the way we interact with our clients as well. So all relationships really become more authentic and feel less corporate, which is just a really nice way to do business, this authentic feel. And then in February last year, we launched a new brand called Exceptional, which is a strategic agency focused primarily on driving positive change and innovation. So focusing on those purpose-driven organizations. So even more drive in that direction. I think for a long time, we were really focused on pushing forward in the areas that B Corp pillars cover, particularly governance, workers, and customer side of things. So B Corp felt like a really good direction of travel for us, good fit for us as we've evolved.
As part of what you were doing, it became relevant, definitely. So
Yeah.
take your mind back. When did you first hear about B Corp? When did you become aware of it?
Well, it's a funny thing. I was thinking about this. Awareness is a funny thing. So about 8 or 10 years ago, we worked with 2 clients who were B Corp certified since 2014-15, which I think was right back at the start.
Really early, yeah.
It wasn't on my radar at all. I saw the logo on their website. I didn't really know anything about it. At that time, I think I thought it was just for companies with an environmental or a sustainability focus, like really focused on, these topics. I think in the last 5 years, I've seen it more, in places, walking around places like Body Shop, have the logo quite prominently. But even then, still quite low awareness. I thought, as a result of seeing it in these places, I thought it was for bigger organizations or maybe more product focus. And it wasn't until 2023, I was talking to a friend in an agency leaders group who was going through the B Corp process. And I was not taken aback. I was a bit surprised. And then I looked into it. We had a good chat, looked into it, realized that it actually aligned with us really well. And that set me on the path to thinking, well, maybe we should, include this as part of our business.
Okay, brilliant. So you saw it, you got involved, it sort of aligned with what you wanted to do. So then what were the first steps you took?
So the first thing we did in September, I think 23, we took the initial assessment. Got a disheartening benchmark score of 43 and a bit. I think, it felt a bit painful. I thought we aligned fairly well. Took you do a questionnaire, take a test, and you realize that you're not doing well at all. At that point, we engaged Business on Purpose, which is an organization much like yours, which helps with the process of going through the B Corp assessment. That was at the recommendation of the guy from the agency leaders group. Really helpful to have someone. I would so highly recommend using someone to help you through the process. It really helped us. We did it in a cohort, but others have done it individually. So that was in November. And then between November and January, our team worked really hard on getting the evidence together, answering the questions. And then we submitted in January 24.
Yeah.
So then I think May that year, B Corp UK came back to us for a kind of, mini checkup interview, depends how you look at it. And then May was our official global B Corp interview, and we got our certification in June 24.
Yeah.
With a score of 89, which we were very pleased with.
Fabulous.
80 is the benchmark that you need to get over. We were at one point worried, we just struggle over it, which isn't a good look. B Corp particularly, well, both the UK and the global teams were both really helpful in finding points for us that we hadn't considered we were worthy for. So it is a very positive experience actually from that point of view.
Yeah, I think sometimes that people are surprised at that, because it's B Corp want to help you get on the journey, because then it's a continual improvement process. So they will help you to understand the questions and help you to find those points. If you know, sometimes people are too careful and they're worried they're going to overstate what they do almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the big tips, so what I didn't do first time, and one of the big tips that I would give to anyone else is about answering the questions aspirationally.
Yeah.
So you answer them as if where you want to be, and then you work to get to that point, rather than answering them as to where you are, and then it's really hard to push forward from that point, I think.
And when you started working on it, did you involve lots of people in your company?
Well, so we're a small agency, which means that while engagement is really important, I don't want everyone to be involved because we'd get no work done. So what we did is we got a team of 3 together. So one of our strategists was responsible, that's Charlie, responsible for completing the documentation, all the activities, doing the majority of the work to get us ready for submission, keeping on top of things. Our director of client success, Anna, is really the heart or the conscience of the business. So her involvement was really important to us. And she's also a senior leader. She runs the production team, so it means she has a good overview of how much time we're spending, across the 2 activities. And then I was like the product owner. I was making sure that we understood what the whole process was, make sure we're on track. The odd bit of confidential info I would deal with, and then make any judgment calls if should we say answer A or answer B. Which route are we going to go down? This might take hours longer. This might, so those kind of judgments were for me to call. And then the rest of the team, really, we tried to do regular engagement. So we do show and tells, talk to people about what is B Corp, start at the beginning. What are we planning to do? What's the process look like, as much as we knew? Any details or policies that came out of it. And of course, they were involved from the point of view of measuring the amount of rubbish everyone generated, which was a fun little engaging activity for everyone.
So any sort of challenges you found with it? What sort of, if I'm going to ask you some highs and lows, if we start with the lows, if there were any.
Start with the lows, so we can end on the highs. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, clarity, not knowing the process, understanding the terminology, what's scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions. I'm still not sure I know the answer to that. Fortunately, I had someone to help. The initial assessment was demotivating, so we needed to kind of ignore that moment. Not knowing how long it would take, how much effort it was going to be. The gathering the documentation was, it's a big deal, and I think some people get kind of bogged down in it a little bit, and again, a bit demotivated. We didn't know how serious working with the disclosure industry was. We didn't know what a disclosure industry was. Seems like a moderately arbitrary list. And you can discover, oh no, we've got a client here, we've got a client here, but there's no real indication of how serious it is if you're working with one of those. I think ultimately the big, potential for demotivation is not knowing whether you're going to get the certification at the end of a lot of work. But we reframed it in a way that actually right at the beginning of saying, yes, we'd love to get the certification, and yes, we believe we can, but if we don't, we haven't gone through this process in vain. It's got value, intrinsic value. We want to be able to say that we've done the process even if we haven't got the reward. I guess there are options to take to redo the assessment if you haven't succeeded. So those were some of the lows. It was a bit hard to tell what was going to happen, I suppose.
Yes, you don't know what you don't know, but also I guess, as you say, going through the process the framework is so fantastic that the fact that you were at 40 odd points at the beginning and then you went through this process, you improved your business. Like you even if nothing else happened, the improvements are immense.
Right, which was the reframing. It is really helpful. Yeah, it is quite a much more positive way of looking at, pass or fail is not the point. The point is how can we do better?
Yeah.
I suppose the only other thing to say is that there aren't always any visible immediate impacts from quite a big activity like this. It has had an impact. It's just whether it's been visible or not to the rest of the team, perhaps maybe to some of our clients.
Yeah.
But over time, the impact will become much more apparent, I think.
Yes. So go on then, tell me the highs.
Well, I think the obvious one is that the alignment with our values was such that we wanted the process. We wanted to go through it. It was a positive experience all round. The team running it were not just on board, but were driving it, just really, again, wanting to be involved, wanting it to work. I've already said working with a partner was really helpful for us. From lots of points of view. I said we were in a cohort. You could see what other people were doing. You could represent your business. You could lead the way in some areas. We all had little bits to add, which was really helpful. And as I said already, the B Labs team in the UK and global were gunning for us. It felt like, and I think in terms of the result, the team engagement's really good. I mentioned, we have the exceptional brand. It's another tool in our box for selling to clients or for engaging with clients, but it's also really positive for the team. And it's keeping us moving in the direction that we really want the business to go in. So it's just positive. It's worked out really nicely for us all around.
What about your impact report? I know you won't be due to do it yet, but what's your intentions? Because people are always interested in that, like whether you're going to do it on your website or what.
Yeah, well, we have done one. It is on our website. It's a PDF. It's fairly straightforward at the moment. It reads as a sort of document about the process and about what we've done and where we've scored. So we're reasonably open about it. I don't think there's any reason not to be, particularly. It's in a section that's about our values because it ties in really nicely. And that's how we use. I must say I don't know much about how the rules have changed, or I've not looked into that yet because we already had been assessed by the time they changed. But next time round, I'm really keen for how do we get more points. It's got a gamified feel to it. I know it's not a point scoring exercise and that's not what it's about, but there's something exciting about looking at where we can improve, which areas are we notably low in and where we can do better.
Yeah, I mean, the standards changing will be. I know people actually do quite like the scoring element because it allows you to gamify it a little bit. But I think the changing models, so it's all going to be impact models. So you can't score really high in workers, but not so well in environment. It's going to be much more balanced. So it's. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm looking forward to seeing the standards come out this year.
Absolutely.
So tell me about some top tips. So for another agency embarking on the journey, what do you think they should do?
Well, I've probably mentioned them already. I think the first one would be get help. I think it's so useful to have support along the way. I've mentioned terminology is hard. Keeping going is not that easy. Small businesses, it's a big ask. I've seen some 1 and 2 person businesses go through this process. I can't imagine that. I put some effort into this, and other members of the team put a huge amount of effort into this. I know what's involved, and I can't imagine doing it in a really small agency. And I definitely can't imagine doing it without the help, even if it's just asking a question of, what does this mean? How do I do this? Can you just, give me a hint on this? You've said B Labs themselves are helpful, but I think, there's a kind of smaller step-by-step help, which is just really useful to have. And I think the other thing is about scoring yourself aspirationally. It's about thinking, this process, ours took 9 months, others take 12, others take 18. And in a way, you can take as long as you need. Think about where you want to be at the end of this process rather than where you are now or where you were at the end of last financial year. We often think of our businesses in hindsight and then way in the future. This is very much a now and the future process, I think. So thinking of yourself in terms of where am I, where do I want to be? Let's start there.
So you also mentioned benefits in terms of it being slightly intangible, and you think it being longer term. Have you noticed any of your clients or suppliers or people on your team or coming into your team? What sort of things have you heard other people say since you've got the certification?
Yeah, I think it has definitely had an impact. I mentioned our exceptional brand. It pairs so well with that, and we have such interest in that brand. Probably more from the brand point of view than B Corp, but B Corp is a very well-known, mark, and really backs up the mission of that brand. It's had some impacts in terms of how we do things internally. So it's really a lot of people that we look to recruit using that as part of it, and people are really interested in the culture side of things. That has really changed. The landscape has really changed in the last 10 years in terms of how you look for a job, and this forms a big part of that. I think so. We started something called the Exceptional Manifesto. It's in the aim of really pushing the exceptional brand forward, and we use these things we call foundations, but many of them are based on the pillars of the impact areas of B Corp. So we've added in a couple of our own, which are about the services, what we actually offer to clients, which is not in the B Corp impact areas, and the commercials, because from our point of view, it's great having a business that's on brand and on value, but you also need to have real commercial acumen. Otherwise, you're not going to be around for long to make a difference. And these foundations really push the business forward. They're kind of, they're really taking B Corp to heart and saying this is fundamental, and owning it a bit more, not saying that's B Corp over there and it's our stamp of approval, but saying we're running things in a very similar way, very aligned with the way B Corp works. So it really impacts us in every area that we work in.
Okay. And then lastly then, what will you do next? So you are already certified, you're on a journey of improvement because everyone recertifies after 3 years, you've done your first impact report. What are your focus areas? Where do you think you'll focus next?
Well, the Exceptional Manifesto is really helping us focus. So I mentioned earlier about wanting to score more points. We're not in that zone yet. I think we're really about looking at how the manifesto can help us. So within the manifesto, each area has a goal, and so we're really pushing towards that goal, and to say, how can we do better, or how can we do it at all in this area? So an example might be, there's a goal within there. We set some objectives to reach that goal. We create some activities and KPIs to see whether we're moving in the right direction. We've set up these steering groups, which are going to focus on, we're just starting with 2 at the moment. One is community, and another one is the customer side of things, so about how we interact with our customers. And it involves the whole company. Individuals are part of these groups, and they put forward ideas about, well, how can we progress in this area? So an example would be for the community one, matching people's donations, for example. That's something that we haven't got a policy on. It would be a big benefit for the community. We need to discuss how do we define local? Is it local to the business? Is it local to the individual workers? And so it's just pushing all this stuff forward. It's the kind of thing that may naturally over time happen, but we're just being a lot more focused on why we're doing it, and that we're doing it in a time frame, and to come out with a really focused result, which is in line with these foundations, which are in line with B Corp.
Well, it's the old adage, you can't improve what you don't measure, and B Corp makes you measure everything, and then you actually do things about it much quicker than you would have without it.
So. Absolutely, yeah. And again, direction of travel, it just makes us feel like we're still moving with the kind of wave which is rushing onwards. It's just a great feeling that the business has got on this wave, and we're gonna surf it to stretch the analogy. We're gonna surf it for as long as possible.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you soon.
Great to talk to you. Thanks again.
Bye.
Cheers.